The next element that we're going to want to add to our project is credits. Film credits outline the roles that people play in creating the production. Depending on the duration and complexity of your project, you may include both opening and closing credits. In modern films, the opening credits typically run through the key creative forces behind a project, such as the production company, executive producers, the director, the lead actors, and the show creator, if applicable. The closing credits tend to be more comprehensive and may include all of the individual crew members. You can also thank people that may have been important to the project. It really is up to you and the size of the production in regards to who you're going to include within the credits. What we'll look at here is we'll go ahead and create some closing credits for this short production. I'm just going to go ahead and review how you can make rolling credits and outline the types of things that you may want to include within your credits. Let's take a look. Here I have my project, and at the end of my project, I've gone ahead and added some B-roll footage as well as the music that I'm using. I'm going to have the credits roll on top of this content. You can have credits roll on top of video, still images, or sometimes they'll just show on a solid color screen. We'll review the different ways in which we can make credits. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to park my playback head at the beginning of the clip where I want the credits to start. I already have my Essential Graphics panel open, which I'll be using, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer of text. Then I'm going to go ahead and format the text. So because I'm going to have quite a bit of text and we're going to actually roll our text, I want the text to be a little bit smaller. So I'll still use my Nonito black, but I'm going to reduce the size down considerably. We'll make the text about 40, and actually let's just use bold instead of black. Then we need to determine what the categories are going to be for our particular credits. I'm just going to list some commonly used settings. Typically there'll be something that is going to show who the production was produced by. I'll go ahead and on the next line I'm going to get rid of my all caps, and then we'll put the name of the person. So we'll just write insert text as a placeholder. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my next block of text. So this is going to be our directed by, and then we'll just add insert text. And I'm going to have the titles be all caps, and then the person's name is going to be in regular case. I'll just go ahead and copy this, and we'll paste this in. I'm going to make a starring section, and we might have more than one person that's starring in our film. This particular bit of text could contain multiple names. Now, as you can see, as you start to add more text, it's going to get a little hard to see all the text because it's not going to fit within your screen. Now, what I like to do is I like to create a Word document and write all my text here. This is more convenient because I can see everything, I can spell check everything, and make sure that everything that I want to include is listed. I am just going ahead and listing some commonly used categories, but clearly you can augment this and customize this depending on your project. If you had a project where you had a bunch of costume designs, you would need to list your costume designer. It really just depends on what sort of production you're making and who all is involved. But I'm going to go ahead and select the text that I've written here and copy it. I'll come back to Premiere, and I'm just going to select the whole text block and paste this in. Now, when I pasted this in, I lost a little bit of my formatting. You can see that it's still using my all caps, and we had discussed how we might not want to use that. So it is possible that you're going to need to come in and make modifications on the spacing and what it is that you've written. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and fix everything up. As you're doing this, you will see that the text is not going to entirely fit on your page. So you will need to just kind of pull the text block up so that you can see everything that you want to include and then make your modifications. I'll just go ahead and I'll speed through these changes so that everything is formatted in the way that I want it to be, and then we can move on to the next step. So now that I have this all set up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to position it so that it is located where I want it to be. I'm going to change my alignment to be center aligned. Then I'll go ahead and I'll align the entire block to the horizontal center. This will ensure that all of the text is on the center portion of my screen. It also is common that you might have the name of the production at the very top of your credits. So I'll just go ahead and write this. All right, now my credits are all written out and I'm ready to actually turn this into the rolling credits. What you want to do in order to make the rolling credits is you'll need to click outside of your screen. So I'm going to click in this black part. And when I do, you can see that the credits are still selected within my timeline, but now my Essential Graphics pane is giving me some other information. One of the things that we're going to be using is we're going to check roll. This is going to roll the graphic from the bottom of the screen to the top over the length of the clip. So I'll select this and we can choose to start off screen and we can also choose to end off screen, which is what we want. You can add pre-roll and post-roll. So that is going to be some additional time that is going to pass before the credit rolling starts, but we don't need to do that. And then we also have ease in and ease out. This will make the rolling a little bit smoother. So I'll show you this without the easing and then we'll add the easing. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter or return to preview this. And you'll see that my credits are going to roll through very, very quickly. That's because the speed at which the credits roll is going to be determined on the length of the actual clip. So I actually want to stretch this out over the duration that I have specified for my credits. So if we go ahead and play this section of the clip now, you'll see that they're going to roll much more slowly. And as you can see, our credits are simply going to show and be visible on the screen. Because we have video playing in the background, we'll be able to see that as well. Now, I wanted to point out a couple little nuances. The first thing that we wanted to talk about is the fact that we wanted to experiment with easing. So I'm going to once again select the text box and then click on the outer part of my program window. And now we'll go ahead and we'll add some easing. So I'm going to add easing of 2 seconds. And I can just type 200 and that will convert to 2 seconds. I'm going to do that for ease out as well. And now if we get to the beginning of the clip and play, notice the speed at which it plays. It's probably a little bit difficult to see the easing since this still is playing a little bit stuttery. I really need to render it out and export for you to see it play at the actual speed. But what easing does is it causes the animation to start more quickly than linear ones. And then it will also kind of decelerate at the end. So this just kind of gives it a smoother type of feeling. I generally prefer to have the easing on because I think it looks a little bit better. So you can experiment around with that. The final thing I want to talk about is when you have a lot of text playing on your screen, you might notice that the text is not super clear and sometimes it can even have like a flickering type of effect. So I have a couple of tips that you can use to prevent that from happening. One of the things is to make sure that there's not too much of a drastic contrast within your text and the background. Now, because my text is rolling over the videos, the contrast actually doesn't seem too bad. But if you did have your text rolling over, let's say, a black screen, for instance, it could cause more of the flickering. And just so you know how to create a black screen, I'm going to park my playback head at the beginning of the clip. I'll come to the project window and I'm going to click a new item. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create a color matte. The color matte will allow us to create a matte that is going to be any size and any frame rate. We can alter these settings and we can always change it later. So if I click OK, it's going to specify that I pick a color and I'm just going to use black. I'll click OK and then we need a name for this. So I'll just call this black matte. And here's the black matte item, and now I'm going to need to place this onto my project. So I'm going to create a new video track, and I'll add one more video track. And now I'm going to grab the black matte and just drag it onto the stage. So you'll see that this is just a black bar. Now, obviously I want these to be flipped. So what I ultimately need to do is drag the credits up to the video 4 track. And then I would place the black matte in the track below it. And I'll need to stretch this out so that it covers the entire area. And now if we look at our credits, you will see that the credits are going to play on a black background. And we have a lot of choices in regards to what we can do here. We could go ahead and go into our effect controls, and we might want to control the opacity. So maybe we don't want it to be 100% black, but just a little darker. So I can reduce the opacity down. And now we'll still be able to see the video that's going to play behind, but it is going to be on a darker type of background. The other thing that I like to do when I'm adding something like this, because the transition between the clip that I had playing before and the black matte, it's not quite as apparent now, but when it was fully black, it was a little bit sharp. So I like to add a transition. I will open up my effect pane, and if we go to video transitions, we have a bunch of transitions right here. So you could choose any sort of transition. I'm just going to use a standard cross dissolve. So I'm going to grab the cross dissolve and I'll drag this to the black matte. And let's actually just bring this all the way up to 100% so you can really see what happens. If we play this section now, you can see that there is a fade in of the black matte, so that won't be quite as jarring. It's going to have a little bit of a fade. And I'm going to leave the transition there, but I will reduce the opacity down to 65% overall so that we can still kind of see our video that's playing behind the credits that are going to roll on our screen. If you are going to have your credits appear on a high contrasted background, for instance, white text on a black background, you may want to change the color of the text slightly. So instead of using a pure white, you might want to just slightly offset it and use like a very light color gray. This will not be too noticeable overall, but it just will help with the flickering. And the other option that you have to reduce the flickering is to add an effect. And the effect that we want is called Reduce Interlace Flicker. So I'm going to drag this to my text. Once we've applied that, if we look in our effect controls, you can see here's my Reduce Interlace Flicker. And if we open up the softness setting and change the softness, you'll see that what happens is it's going to make the text appear quite a bit softer. So if I pump this up quite a bit, you'll see that it actually makes the text a little blurry and kind of softens it a little bit. So we don't want to usually use quite a significant amount. I usually tend to do something that's between maybe 0.75 and 1.5, depending on your needs. So you can try that. And then that should prevent any sort of flickering from occurring when your text is going to roll onto the screen. So that can definitely help. Those are just two little tips that you might want to use when you're using a credit roll. And clearly there are lots of ways that you can handle a credit roll. I've just made mine pretty simple and had it playing on top of some video clips. You could have the text showing against a black background and maybe just make the video smaller and have it appear to the right. A lot of times they will have the bloopers show as the credits roll, just to make it a little bit more entertaining. So design-wise, you can really do whatever you want within the credits, but I did want to show you how you could easily make the credits roll. And just like everything else, if you think this is something that you're going to be using in other projects, you may want to save this as a motion graphics template, and then you'll have a template of credits that you can use in any sort of project.